I recently bought some fleece from Paradise Fibers. I bought this called Humbug. It's an Icelandic wool. There's 16 ounces of it. So there's quite a bit there. And really nice fleece. I love the coloring. So at our local fair, we have a category called Spinner's Challenge. And in that, every year that fiber for the Spinner's Challenge changes. And this year is Icelandic. Next year, I believe, is bison. And you have to use at least 50% of that fiber in your spin. And then you spin a certain quantity or more, and you make something with that fiber you've spun. So this year being Icelandic, I thought, oh, I'll buy this. I've been wanting to try and work with some Icelandic. I have some in my breed study, but I've not worked with it yet. This has a beautiful feel to it, but it's a coarser wool, so it is not against the skin. It can be used on outerwear, which will be very warm and waterproof and stuff, but it's not something you would put against your skin. It's very coarse and itchy. So a lot of times it's used more in making other things, like what I'm thinking is maybe a rug, but it's going to depend on how much yardage I have. So normally they say, oh, spin for what you're making. And I'm not positive how much yardage I'll have, so I have not exactly decided. I know I'm leaning towards rug, but I don't know if it'll be a little tiny rug like you would put at your door, or if I can do something just a little bit bigger. I know it's not going to be really big. I mean, there's only 16 ounces here, but 16 ounces is still a nice quantity. So I have decided I'm going to spin it on Elizabeth. Elizabeth was not my first wheel, but it's the wheel I learned on. And I feel like I have the most consistency and stuff with that wheel. Where like this wheel, I really like this wheel, but every time I load up a new bobbin, I've got to get things adjusted just right to where I feel like I've got things going smooth. And Elizabeth, I can usually sit down and I can work on it, and I can change the bobbin out, and I can continue working. And since this is for a competition, I want the best possible outcome. So I think I'm going to use Elizabeth to work this on. I have not yet decided if I want to do a 2-ply or a 4-ply. Recently, I was watching Jillian Eve, and she was doing a 4-ply, and I've never really thought about doing that before, but the end yarn came out so neat. It had a very round chain-like look to it, and which would give you great stitch definition. It's just a beautiful yarn. So I'm kind of like toying with that idea, but I think it's going to depend on how my singles come out and how thick my singles end up being as to whether I decide to do a 2-ply or attempt the 4-ply. I've got a decent amount here. We'll see how much yarn I end up with. And then once I get the yarn, I've already been looking at some stuff on Ravelry, but not knowing how much yardage I had or what the thickness of my yarn was, it makes it hard to really say, okay, I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to spin it up. We'll see how the yarn comes out and then see what we can make with it. All right, so it seems the farmhouse rug has won. So I need to get these all caked up and start knitting myself a farmhouse rug. And the one that I'm doing is the one with the garter stitch border around it. So I'm going to get these caked up and I'm going to get knitting. I've got everything caked up. All caked up, all ready to go. So now I need to get out my needles and start knitting. So I'm trying to decide between a 29 and a 40. I think that's a 40-inch string. And I think I'm going to go with the 40 because the end dimensions on the one she did was 24 by 30. And I don't know which, I think the 24 was the narrow side. But I'm going to do the needle size that was recommended in the original pattern, which means I might get a little bit more than that. So I think I'm going to go with the 40s. So I'm going to do the size 13 needle and the 40-inch string instead of the size 11. So I'm going to do the original pattern needle size, but I'm going to do the cast on and extras from Ava May had done. And she had the extra border around it, which is what I like. So I'm going to do the extra border and I'm going to do the less stitches that she did, and then hopefully that yarn. But also with the longer needle, I can lay it out as I'm working with it too and kind of get an idea of how it's looking. So I'll probably work it until, what I'm thinking I'm going to do is weigh the amount of yarn that I put in for the first 7 rows of border, so that I know that if I have about that much yarn left, I need to switch and do the border, which means I want to weigh the needles first too, so I can subtract the weight of the needles when I do that. So let's see, the needles weigh 11 grams. So I will subtract 11 grams from the weight once I get those first 7 rows on, so I know how much yarn. I'm going to start working on this. So they were working this double. I'm going to take my 2 bigger cakes to start with. I guess I did pretty good at guessing how much yarn I was going to need for my cast on. That looks so small. I know it's going to stretch a little bit after probably the first couple rows, but it looks so tiny. But I know I only have so much yarn, so it has to be tiny, right? So I'm glad that I'm using the bigger needles. The thickness that I have going here, I can feel the tightness on this needle, so I'm glad it's the bigger needle and not the smaller one. I think this is going to work much better. I think if I'd done the smaller one and hadn't double stranded it, then that might have been okay, but with the double stranding of it, I think this larger needle definitely works better with the yarn I'm using. Okay, we got our 7 rows done, and I am going to weigh this and see how much yarn we need for the end, because our cast on row should give us enough yarn weight for our bind off row. 63 grams, so that'll be 52 grams of yarn that we need to make sure and have at the end. Actually weighing some of my smaller balls to see how much they are. Nope. Okay, so 52 grams. Remember that. We need 52 grams to do the last 7 rows. So we can work until that point. So here's our first, focus, there's our first 7 rows. It's really nice and squishy. Now we're going to start the actual body pattern of it. And this was actually a free pattern, and it's a very simple pattern. The other notes I'm using is from this other Ravelry user. So I will link both things below. I will link the pattern and the project. And if you're enjoying this, please make sure and click like and subscribe, and shoot me a comment. I love comments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I should not talk and count. It doesn't work. Okay, now I need a stitch marker. Do I have a stitch marker that will fit this big needle? Nope, that one's not going to fit. I think I'm going to have to make myself one with a little bit of yarn. Get into my yarn scraps and make myself a stitch marker. Okay, so I'm just taking a little piece of yarn and just going to tie a knot. And now we have a stitch marker that's big enough to fit our needles. I've got one for each end because I want to have a stitch marker where my 2 sides are, because we're doing 7 stitches on either side for a border. Then I don't have to count all the time.
Is the size of this seam, which is really thick. Anybody who's worked with heavier wefts knows how challenging it is to make clean selvages, and so this is just what you get, basically.
Well, it's been just over 2 weeks since I started this. It's actually been about 17 days since I started from the beginning of the spinning till today, the finished product. I really like how this came out. I'm very excited about this. Here is our finished little rug. And the yarn, it worked up beautifully. I mean, you can see the consistency of the yarn. It's very nice and consistent. It's a very simple pattern, but it showcases the yarn, I think, really well. And I thought, as I worked it, I thought, oh, I've got a little spot here or there that I might need to go in with a needle felting needle and fix. But looking back at it now, I can't find any of those spots that I had thought about. So it's all been blocked and everything. And it feels so nice under your feet. I mean, it's itchy. It's not something you would want against your skin, but like the skin on your feet is just so different. And when you step on this and wiggle your toes in it, it feels so good. So I am really happy with it. It's the perfect little size for like at a door or in front of your bathtub. So I know I'm going to get lots of use out of it. I'm not going to use it right now because this I made for our fair specifically. So it'll be a couple months before it goes into full use, but I'm definitely going to use it. I'm actually really looking forward to using it. And so I weighed out the yarn, trying to figure out, because I wanted 52 grams to finish those last few rows. And then I thought, okay, I need to add to that a little bit because inconsistency in the yarn being hand spun, I should maybe say about 60 grams. So I worked and kept weighing it, and I got to around, I think I was actually closer to 70 or 67, something like that, when I decided to do those last few rows. I just didn't want to take the chance of running out. And so I actually have 17 grams left. So there's a possibility. I think I could have maybe I know I could have done one more row. I maybe could have done two more rows. But looking at it, doing an extra 2 rows wouldn't make that big of a difference in this. So I'm not upset that I didn't do it. If I had a whole bunch left, it might have been different. But being just like 1 or 2 rows, and this gives me a little bit left that I can put into my Cozy Memories blanket. So that works. I might be able to do a whole square, and if not, I can work it with another little ball, stick it in my Cozy Memories, and that will be a nice spot for that. So this is how it came out. I will throw in a couple pictures of it so you can see it a little bit better. The pattern that's on it is where I did the border to it. Because of the marled color in the yarn, it's hard to see that, but you can still see it. So I'm glad still that I put the border on it. So I'm very happy with the outcome. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little journey with me. If you did, please make sure and click like and subscribe. Leave me a comment, tell me what you think, and join me for my next adventure.